What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Motor Racing Network's NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. Whelen Engineering, it's the final episode of 2024 as we put a bow on the entire season on the NASCAR regional slate as I'm still dusting myself off from Phoenix Raceway over the weekend as we crowned our national champions. Of course, ARCA West champion was crowned as well. And boy, Kyle, I can't believe it's over. Kyle Rickey, Chris Wilner here joining us as always, and Kyle, we're set to cap things off here. I can't believe it.
I feel like we were just opening up shop at New Smyrna Speedway in February for what was 10 nights of racing with tour-type modifieds and late models and pro stocks, and now here we are, 9 months later, wrapping up our final championship event of the season and our final show of 2024, I believe year 13 of NASCAR Coast to Coast. So, lot to talk about.
Lots to talk about indeed. Of course, we also started the year in the old MRN studios at 555, right. And here we are now at NASCAR Productions in Concord. So a lot has changed over the years. Of course, we will talk about our champions and kind of put a cap on 2024. We do have a special guest for you this week to dive into all things NASCAR Regional. It's Managing Director Joey Dennewitz. Good insights from Joey coming up in segment number 2, plus our highlights of the season as we look ahead to a couple big events that'll be happening in the winter months. Let's talk about Phoenix Raceway, though. First, Kyle, ARCA West Championship kicked things off in Phoenix on Friday morning, local time. It was interesting to have a race go green at 11 a.m., but that's what happens when it's championship weekend. And, of course, Sean Hingorani, Tyler Reif were in the title chase. Sean Hingorani, though, getting his second straight championship on the ARCA West platform, finishing third. It was a season that we documented several times, moving from ride to ride, and he was openly candid in the media center saying he had funding full-time with Hattori. Suddenly that went away, and it forced him to scramble for some other rides, but he found a home back at Venturini Motorsports, where he ultimately won the championship. Kyle, he did what he needed to do, had to finish ninth or better, but again, it was Connor Zilisch versus William Sawalich, like this story we have talked about all year long.
And I feel like that's going to be something we're going to be talking about for many years to come, not just this year. I mean, Connor and William have put on great shows, no matter the platform in ARCA, whether it be the National Series, the East Series, or the West Series, and now they're moving into NASCAR's National Series. So they will be fun to watch grow and really use this ladder that we've been talking about for so many years. You know, you start at the short track level, you move into ARCA, and then obviously Truck Xfinity and Cup, and they are on the path to doing just that. So great runs for them, great run for Sean Hingorani, who had to watch them battle for the lead, finishing in third over the weekend at the Phoenix Raceway, which was good enough to pick up his second consecutive championship. You mentioned all that movement. It was a tough first half of the season, but he found his home in the season's second half with Venturini and was really able to build steam on that title.
12 races, he had 4 different teams to start the year and then caught fire midway through the season. I know he swept Irwindale and then had a few other wins as well going into Phoenix that gave him that 14-point cushion. But Tyler Reif, tip of the cap to him. Of course, he was a former winner at Phoenix, was strong as well, just couldn't quite get to where he needed to be in the championship finale. And you mentioned Connor Zilisch. He's going to go Xfinity racing full-time next year, caps it off with a win, and I believe his 7th or 8th ARCA platform win, and not even a full-time driver, just kind of cherry-picked his way through the season with his other commitments as well. So congratulations to Sean Hingorani. Of course, we'll see what next year brings. He had mentioned that he wasn't sure yet. He was working on some things for 2025, so be curious to see if he's on the national slate for ARCA or makes the move to trucks. Speaking of ARCA, they build champions. That's kind of their slogan. Boy, they did. When you look at the National Series champions, Kyle, out of Phoenix, between Joey Logano, Justin Allgaier, and Ty Majeski. How about Ty Majeski, one of our short track aces, getting a championship in his 3rd year full-time racing trucks? Shows you that the ladder to NASCAR leads you right to being a champion if you want it bad enough.
Yeah, all three have found success on the ARCA platform or in the ARCA platform years ago for Logano and Allgaier, and a little more recently for Ty Majeski. But, he caught fire at one of his favorite racetracks, IRP, back in, late July, early August. Yep. And we knew if he could make the championship for that type of racetrack, a fairly flat 1 mile oval, was going to be right up what he was looking for after all the success of the Milwaukee Mile. And sure enough, He was the driver to beat come Friday night and was able to pick up his first championship and continuing the legacy that is ThorSport Racing in that series.
Yeah, a deserving champion. He even posted on Monday on his social media just how this opportunity came to be. He got fired from Nice Motorsports in 2020, part-time deal. Said Chase Briscoe, do you have David Pepper's number? Got him connected. One thing led to another. He won the Snowball that year and got a job, engineer, by the way, full-time, and then part-time racer at ThorSport, and it led to the full-time ride, and now he's a champion. So kind of what a success story for Ty. When you look at Justin Allgaier, I don't think there was anybody in the entire world that was upset with Justin Allgaier winning a championship. When you saw the amount of competitors, other team members down there congratulating him, one of the most emotional scenes I think I've ever been a part of, getting to be down there on the front stretch for that one for the Motor Racing Network. Bawled like a baby and well-deserving. You think 14 years, Kyle, of trying to achieve a championship, and Justin did it? It's incredible stuff to watch. And the way he did it, too, a 3-wide pass in the middle when we all thought it was over when he threw it away a few times on pit road.
Well, 14 years of trying, 7 times in the championship 4, and at one point he was nearly 2 laps down in the race after a restart violation and then pit road speeding penalty while serving the restart violation. We thought he was out. We thought this was just going to be another more of the same from the first 6 times he was in the championship 4. Strategy worked out, cautions worked out, and he was able to battle his way back up through the field and hold off a hard-charging Cole Custer, not for the race win, but for a spot. I believe it's for the second position on the racetrack and ultimately for the championship. Held him off by a car length, and you're right, very emotional post-race would follow.
Yep, and Riley Herbst, the deserving race winner, of course, sending Stewart Haas Racing as we know it. Of course, it'll be Haas Factory Team next year on the Xfinity side, but capping them off with a win. Tony was there, Gene Haas was there. Really cool moment for them. And then finally, while we wrap things up on the national side, Joey Logano goes out and wins his 3rd title. Dominated at the end, Kyle, but again, the people on social media love to pull out the old Winston Cup standings and say, well, this guy isn't deserving of a championship because enough. This is the playoff format that has been and will be for the next future for a while. And Joey and Paul Wolf, whenever they are in that backs against the wall situation, and I'm talking about going into the playoffs, is not even in the championship conversation. They go on and win Atlanta. They go out and win Las Vegas, gives themselves plenty of time to prep for Phoenix. And when you let the dog back in the room, they're going to capitalize. And Joey and Paul did on Sunday.
I mean, Jimmy and Chad had the 10-race chase figured out for so many years, and now I think Team Penske has figured out a formula to this playoff format, starting in the regular season by just doing what you have to do and stay afloat, which is what they did. They won several events to qualify for the playoffs. But boy, when this 10-week stretch starts, look out. And, they have it figured out. And, they have Phoenix Raceway figured out, as was evident over the weekend when it was pretty much those two ever since they rolled off the truck for practice on Friday, qualifying on Saturday, and then the race on Sunday. All eyes were on the 12 and the 22, who ultimately picked up the title for a 3rd time for Joey Logano. Connecticut native, might I add. That's
right, Connecticut native. And it's actually funny, just a little sidebar, Joey Logano and the World of Outlaw sprint car champion this year, David Gravel, began racing quarter midgets at the same place in Connecticut. So 2 champions in major series this year coming from the same grassroots up there in Connecticut. Pretty good stuff. I don't also want to know how much fingernails are left on Roger Penske, because watching the end of that race with Ryan coming down, you knew Ryan was going to do whatever it had to win the race, and I know they're teammates, but didn't quite get close enough there at the end for Joey Logano. Some other winners over the weekend. Connor Hall picked up the victory at the Fall Brawl at Hickory to close Hickory Motor Speedway's 2024 season. Of course, that was the first time also he was behind the wheel of the number 8 Junior Motorsports late model stock. Of course, he will run full-time for them next year after being crowned national champ for the 2nd straight season. And Matt Hirschman picked up his 10th career and 4th straight North-South shootout at Caraway. Of course, the former NASCAR Whelen Modified champ John McKennedy was there as well. He picked up the Super Modified win over the weekend as they put a close on their season. So, Kyle, the snow's probably not there yet, but I would imagine everything is pretty much buttoned up in your neck of the woods by now.
Yeah, everything is buttoned up. They turned all the water off, or as David Arute called it, they winterized the Stafford Motor Speedway property just the other day, 100 acres, and the office building's still good to go, but all the VIP towers and the press box and the pit area bathrooms, it's all been shut down for another off season.
Wait, is the double hook closed already? They put the tap stops up on the... man, I was going to go one more time to have a fresh... But that's all right. I'll wait for next year. Our guest of the week, Joey Dennewitz, managing director of the NASCAR Regional Series, is coming up next on the other side of this break. So we'll step aside and join him, and we come back. Much more on NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen Engineering.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and warning systems for the automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Whelen products are designed, sourced, and manufactured in America and tested on site to meet the toughest industry standards. Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. We never left, and we're here to stay.
Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast on the Motor Racing Network, brought to you by Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. Whelen Engineering. Joining us now, our special guest this week, managing director for NASCAR Regional, Joey Dennewitz. Joey, end of the season is here. Congratulations, my friend. Can you breathe just a little bit now that we wrap things up?
I told Chris Wright last weekend in Phoenix, I can't believe we survived another one. I feel like it's a battle every year to do your best. We all come from competitive backgrounds, whether it be, driving or race teams, et cetera. And we all kind of view it the same way. So I feel like, I think on Monday after Phoenix, I felt a little bit of a breath, but there's a lot to do. We got Bowman Gray coming up in like 86 days or something ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
So we're, people ask all the time, like, what are you going to do for your off season? Take any vacations? You're like, no, I'm working because you got stuff to do.
More on Bowman Gray here in a little bit, but how would you sum up 2024? Looked like very healthy seasons for everybody that falls under the NASCAR and ARCA banners.
Yeah, the NASCAR regional stuff was really exciting this year. I feel like we put a bigger emphasis on our digital, and that came through. There was a lot of really great storylines that came through this year. So whether it was the second in a row for Connor Hall for the Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series Championship, which propelled him to a job at Junior Motorsports, which is incredible, to Justin Bonsignor picking up his fourth title in the Whelen Modified Tour, with a marvelous battle through the stretch for 2 years in a row with the 16 team and Ron Silk. I mean, I don't care what Justin says. They hate each other, and it's fun to watch for us as race fans. So, those guys battling, back and forth every single weekend, and to have a straight up points championship for 16 races go to the final race, and those guys were never outside of 15 points apart the entire season, is incredible and a real testament to the competition that we have there. And then the ARCA stuff, Ron Drager feels so strongly about that tagline, "We build champions." And it was really fun to see Sean Hignorani get his second, as well as William Sawalich, and then Andreas Perez. I mean, incredible consistency all year. And I'm hearing he's got some big news in the future too, if it hasn't already been leaked.
Well, let's start with the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, because we were talking before this interview. You wanted to get something straight here. There is a rivalry between Justin Bonsignor and Ron Silk. We had Justin on the show. He's kind of downplayed it a little bit, but as somebody that kind of oversees the series, how much fun was this year just watching those two go tooth and nail? Obviously, the final race at Martinsville, unfortunately, Ron had an issue, but all things considering, this was a good old-fashioned rivalry for the 2024 season.
Yeah, there's a few fronts here as a race fan, which I think the first thing you are when you work in this business, regardless of what your role is to be a race fan. And as a race fan, there's nothing better than watching two of the greatest to ever do it throw haymakers at each other. And that was happening on the racetrack multiple times. And then there was some extracurricular off the racetrack that was a little exciting and fun. Now, as the sanctioning body, you have to make sure that there's order and there's a line that you can cross that goes too far, and it becomes unsafe. But those guys pushing right up against that line and doing it so masterfully is really gratifying to see. Again, as a race fan, as a promoter for the series, I think that Justin and Ron both. I don't think. I know Justin and Ron both downplay that rivalry, and I think it's silly that they downplay it, in my opinion, because I know what they've said to me, and I know what they've said to others, and I know the actions, and I can see them race each other harder than anyone else up and down the grid. So ultimately, I can't wait for next year with the announcement that we made with Whelen Engineering and increasing the championship purse 250% and race purses having a minimum start of 2,000 to start. I can't wait to see who else is going to battle for that championship. Patrick Emmerling had speed through the stretch, kind of fell off at the end of the season, but they come back next year. That's going to be another car that's a championship contender. And then, like I said, I can't wait to see whoever comes out as well.
My next question for you, and I guess a follow-up to, you just mentioned some of the exciting announcements for next season. Whelen coming back again, over 20 years, I believe, now with the series. How important was it for you guys to keep them as a partner with the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour?
Kyle, it was never about keeping as much as it was about understanding how to move forward with partnerships. So I think a lot of times in agreements, whether it be sponsorship agreements or lease agreements or any type of agreements, when you have longevity, you have an opportunity to build. And I think that the Whelen Engineering opportunity here was to build on it, not necessarily to just keep. It would have been really easy for both sides to just be like, all right, let's change the date on the agreement and call it a day. But they wanted to invest in their community. Those are those people. The Modified Tour is their people. It's their community. And when they said they want to invest in it, we went to work on best ways to do that. And ultimately, I think that there's no better tour. There's no better series. And if you're going to be a top-ranked modified driver, then you need to come to the Whelen Modified Tour and compete.
Let's also talk a little bit about the 2025 schedule. Obviously, we hit our marquee racetracks that we typically see over the years. But one thing that stuck out to me was the alignment with NASCAR All-Star Weekend at North Wilkesboro. How important is that weekend going to be when we potentially have the modifieds be the lead up to the All-Star race, and you've got, a sold out crowd there at North Wilkesboro and expose maybe some NASCAR fans to their first modified race?
You nailed it. That's exactly it. It's about shining a spotlight on the good product that we have, the Whelen Modified Tour. And frankly, I think you can see a couple of different examples of NASCAR looking at it holistically and making sure that we can use the Cup Series spotlight to shine a light on our short track program. A perfect example is Bowman Gray, right? The reason that the Clash is going to Bowman Gray is that it's an opportunity for us to shine a spotlight on, as you guys know, one of the greatest motorsports spectacles in the world at the Madhouse. So I think you can see that is another example of that. Really, really grateful to Jessica and everybody at Speedway Motorsports for seeing the vision and giving us an opportunity to share the good gospel of the Whelen Modified Tour.
You mentioned the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, the greatest tour out there, but there are other tours. The modified landscape seemingly has gotten pretty crowded here the last decade or so. Has that really presented any challenges for NASCAR, especially when scheduling races up in the Northeast? And we're even seeing, the Smart Tour down south now grow a little bit.
Well, number one, I think that a rising tide lifts all ships. So I think you're seeing more of a renaissance in short track racing across the board, whether it be our Advanced Auto Parts weekly series all the way to our modified tour. The challenge has always just been focusing on what we have and what our competitors want and what would be the best for our competitors and competitors that want to come race with us. And I've used this example a few times in the media, but when I drove race cars, I didn't focus on everybody else's race car. I focused on my race car. I wanted to make sure I knew what made my race car go fast. And so I think you can get caught up in looking what everybody else does. But ultimately, you're just trying to figure out what would be best for the competitor, the partners, and the racetracks. We were very, very lucky this year in a 16 race schedule. It was not difficult to fill 16 races. We could have done more. And we had partners and racetracks that came to us and wanted to do more. But we feel like 16 is the right number for our tour. And we think that the cadence, which was really important, giving our guys an opportunity to race and be in front of incredible crowds like the one at All-Star, all the way to running those great New England short tracks that have such steep history.
Let's quickly shift gears and talk about the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly National Championship. Obviously, Connor Hall, a deserving two-time champion now, and like you said, kind of gave him the opportunity to now run for Dale Jr. next year. How have you seen that weekly series kind of transition the last couple of years? And I don't remember a time that we've had multiple of our weekly drivers suddenly over the course of the year get opportunities at the Truck Series and Xfinity Series level. And of course, Carson Kvapil now inking a full-time deal for next year. So, I mean, this is the springboard to everything else on the NASCAR landscape, but how big was 2024 for the weekly series?
Connor Hall is a machine. I mean, that guy is unbelievable. And this is the beauty of what I believe the Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series is like, it doesn't matter. After we crown him champion next week here in Charlotte, and I give him a big trophy and a nice check, it's up to him to sort through what happens next. And that springboard or that platform is really, really important. But I always look forward to like, well, who else is next, right? What other fresh blood can get in here? So who can challenge a guy like Connor Hall, which has made, the last 2 years his playground in the Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series. I look forward to next year already. I know we haven't even crowned this champion. He's a deserving champion. Like I said, he was unstoppable this year, and it gave him an opportunity to run for Junior Motorsports, which is one of the best short track racing teams in the country.
And want to briefly touch in on the International Series. NASCAR Mexico, it looked like, had another really solid season. The NASCAR Canada Series, live on Flow every week. So much fun to watch, no matter whether they're on the road courses or the short tracks, along with the NASCAR Euro Series. Looks like they expanded with teams this year. Just kind of your thoughts on the international seasons for NASCAR.
I'm very lucky that my office is a few doors down from Chad Siegler, who manages all the international stuff, and I get to see the highlights every single weekend. I was fortunate enough to go to a few international races over my time here at NASCAR. What an incredible vibe to go to a place like Trois Rivières in Canada and see the whole town get excited about the race. I don't know. I get excited about all of it because it's so much fun to go to and see. Again, first things first, being a race fan, but second, how do we continue to grow the good gospel of the product that we put together?
Well, we talked a little bit about Bowman Gray, and like you said, we're 80-some days, which just made the hair on the back of my neck stand up because I'm like, hold on, pump the brakes just a little bit. But obviously preparations are well underway. What is that going to look like? I know there may be some future announcements coming, but obviously with that tie into short track racing, will we see maybe one or two of those iconic Bowman Gray classes that run on a weekly series or obviously the modifieds as well, be a part of that weekend? Or how's the weekend starting to shape up on your end of things?
Yeah, the whole point again of the Clash was to shine a spotlight on weekly racing, and again, no better place than our backyard and really the very roots of NASCAR. They say NASCAR was born on the beaches of Daytona Beach, but it was a twinkle in the France family's eye back in Winston-Salem, where Alvin Hawkins and Bill France Sr. started promoting races at a public works stadium in Winston-Salem that just happened to be asphalt around it, and they said it would never work. Racing cars on asphalt was ridiculous, and racing them in a football stadium is even more ridiculous. And here we are, 70 some years later, still doing it, and not only doing it, but doing it well, packing in crowds every single weekend for our Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series. But also now the opportunity to bring the NASCAR Cup Series there and shine a spotlight on how beautiful that place is and what an incredible opportunity it is to shine that is really fun. Obviously, to bring the Cup Series there, we have broadcast needs, and we have safety needs, and we have all kinds of needs. So it's been a lot of fun to go through the planning process of this. I think you'll see some announcements in the short term on those preparations and what we've done to prepare for the Cup Series, whether it be safer barrier. I saw a picture the other day of, I think for the first time maybe ever, at least in the last 50 or 60 years, there were no walls. There was no guardrail. The iconic guardrail was removed from Bowman Gray, and it just looked like a football stadium, which is fantastic for our Ramley at the Winston-Salem State University, who put on an incredible display for their homecoming game, which I believe that they won. But now it's about putting some proper safer and going about it. We've got some lighting things that are happening. Our friends at Musco have done a fantastic job giving us the recommendation on what to do there. Make sure that we can see the cars live on Fox, come February 2nd, and then also make sure that what we're doing there is better for the long run. There's been a tremendous amount of consideration for whatever changes or whatever things that we needed to do there for the long term would benefit weekly series racing there for the next 25 to 50 years as well. So I'm excited. It's been a lot of hard work. A lot of people in our design and development team, in our comms team, in our competition team have done a fantastic job thinking through that stuff. And like I said, being considerate. And I know I scare everybody because we're Phoenix, the smoke from Joey Logano's donuts haven't even subsided yet. And I'm already talking about Bowman Gray in 86 days, but I'm really excited to see it all come together.
I was just going to say, the plane barely touched down here a couple of hours ago, it seemed like, from Phoenix, and already talking about next year. My final question for you is, what else is getting you excited about 2025? We've mentioned Bowman Gray. We've mentioned the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour and all the changes there and the announcements there. New Smyrna Speed Week's right around the corner as well, with 10 nights of racing. What else are you looking forward to for next season?
Oh, man, that's a great question, Kyle. The competition continues to kind of bring me all back and want to make me go to the racetrack, whether it be that rivalry between Ron Silk and Justin Bonsignor, whether it be who can come and challenge those guys, whether it be who is the next weekly series, Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series driver to challenge Connor Hall and the establishment there. I'm hearing a really incredible name being thrown around for our ARCA Road to Daytona program, which is built to bring our Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series competitors into the ARCA series by giving them a seat in the test at Daytona. That name that I'm hearing thrown around is steep in history and would be an incredible opportunity for him. I don't know. There's a lot to get excited about, Kyle, man. There's a lot going on.
Well, and that leads me to my final question, too. And you mentioned ARCA because that test is going to be here before we know it, too. And obviously the big announcement on their side of things was national, network television for the first time at Daytona, where it'll be on Big Fox. How big is that? And do we expect maybe 50 cars maybe trying to show up to qualify for this race?
I want to say the more the merrier. Yeah, obviously, anytime that our great broadcast partner in Fox allows us on Big Fox is incredible. I think they see the value in the entertainment that we bring there, but also, again, another opportunity to show and spread the gospel of the beautiful product that is ARCA Racing. Again, like. That's the beauty of this is like, who is going to show up? Who is going to be on the entry list? Last year, the entry list at Daytona looked like a Rolex 24. We had international We had guys from the modified to Justin Bonsignor made it a start. Marco Andretti, guy almost won an Indy 500 and is in the ARCA race at Daytona. So yeah, they're wrapping both of your questions up. There's a lot to look forward to.
Well, I may throw my name in at a late entry. I don't know. All this made me excited to go dust the helmet off and fire suit, maybe go try to give it a go. What do you think?
You're not approved.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic job. I would like to see your credentials and your resume, though, 'cause we're going to have to get you through the approvals process.
I'll send that right over after this interview. Joey Dennewitz, appreciate your time, man. Enjoy what little off season there is, and we'll look forward to catching up with you as we turn the clock to 2025 here shortly.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Absolutely. Joey Dennewitz, Managing Director of NASCAR Regional, joining us here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen Engineering. We're back after this to talk about the calendar and our final thoughts as we put a bow on 2024. That's next.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and warning systems for the automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Whelen products are designed, sourced, and manufactured in America and tested on site to meet the toughest industry standards. Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. We never left, and we're here to stay.
Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast here on the Motor Racing Network as we are back here in the studio. Kyle, great conversation with Joey Dennewitz. A lot to look forward to in 2025, and I have a feeling that there will be announcements beginning to roll out here in the coming weeks as we get through the holidays about maybe some of those things he teased, like who is this possible driver that's going to show up for the Daytona test, and maybe some other news regarding Bowman Gray coming up.
Yeah, no doubt. And he said the Bowman Gray news will be here in the short term. So I look forward to see what that weekend will look like when we go racing there with the NASCAR Cup Series for the first time in a long time. And a lot of other stuff happening in the short track world as well. A lot of it's been announced with the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour and their purse increase, with Whelen returning once again as the title sponsor. The schedule looks great for next year, and I'm sure a lot of the regular race teams are making plans on what they're going to do next season and run for the championship. Somebody's going to dethrone Justin and Ron because they have been atop the schedule other than John McKennedy one year. They have been tough to beat. And I thought Patrick Emmerling was going to have a shot this year at doing it, and he fell just short. So, can't wait for that season to begin next February down south in Florida.
Yeah, I saw Patrick at Phoenix before the Xfinity race, and he's fired up. They said they've already started looking at next year with the modified program. He said, we just can't get behind the 8 ball early and have to play catch up. So I think if Patrick can do that when we get going here in a few months' time, that they could be players for sure. So appreciate Joey for joining us once again. News and notes, really not a whole lot going on. Of course, all the big news, as Kyle mentioned, with the tour and also ARCA with Menards and their schedule having been in the last few weeks. But due to rain, though, unfortunately, the Governor's Cup, for those of you looking for why we didn't talk about the results of that at New Smyrna, it was postponed due to a later date. They've been just hammered with rain down there over the weekend. So unfortunately for that. Some season takeaways, Kyle, before we get to a couple races coming up this weekend. We're going to do two things. We're going to have your biggest surprise and your biggest letdown of the season. And as somebody who's teeing you up on this, I feel like I want to let you go first, but I'm also selfish and I want to go first. So can I go first?
I don't know if I have a letdown.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's not letdown. Maybe it's just something that you were. It could, I guess, fall under surprise. Here, let me lead it off, and maybe this will get the wheels churning. My surprise is in the Smart Modified Tour that 18-year-old Luke Baldwin, who was making his first series season start. I mean, that was rookie season, went out and won the championship over the guy who won 5 races in the first 6, Carson Lofton. I had Carson pegged as the championship winner week 2. I said, this guy's going to run away with it. Yeah, Ryan Newman caught wind late, won a couple races, and was able to be in the championship 5. Obviously, Danny Bone as well. You look at the veteran status. But I didn't have Luke Baldwin in his first try go out and win a Smart Modified Championship with that level of talent. So that was my surprise. It was a good surprise. Congratulations to Luke. My letdown, and it could be a surprise too as well. It's something we talked about all year since probably May, early June. It was the fact that
ARCA.
we didn't have an ARCA National regular winter race this year. I knew it was going to be tough. We lost the dominant Jesse Love to NASCAR, and this was a transition year. I know we had talked about that with Venturini Motorsports, kind of not having that one guy or one driver. They've more had a equal kind of field. But man, Andres Perez couldn't get a win. We saw LeVar throw it in there for a potential win, didn't stick. Just kind of surprised me, and it was almost a letdown that we didn't have an ARCA National winner this year. All right, Kyle, did that help you at all?
Yeah, I think that was my surprise, is
Okay.
we didn't have an ARCA national winner. But congratulations to Andres Perez, who was most consistent at that level. Biggest letdown, maybe, I don't want to say it was a letdown, maybe the last couple months of the year, but Patrick Emmerling, I thought he was coming on strong at the end of the year. He was going to challenge for the modified championship. And I don't know if he fell off a cliff the last 3 weeks, but something, he wasn't a factor over the last 3 events of the season. Let Ron and Justin get away and battle for the championship. It would have been cool to see Patrick up there, mix it up with a couple of former champions of the tour. But other than that, it was a pretty positive season all the way around for about everything we covered, and really hard to find, a letdown or a surprise. I don't know.
I guess one disappointment could have been the way the ARCA East title was decided. Those two drivers, William Sawalich and Connor Zilisch, were tooth and nail the entire year. And unfortunately, Connor just got swept up in somebody else's mess. Yeah. But that was kind of a big I guess that could be a letdown, right? Because we were anticipating this going to the end at Bristol, and it just kind of just fizzled out there with the wrecks. So maybe there's one for you.
Early in the race, too. So,
all right.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay. All right. That was good. I like that segment. Before we get to those couple races coming up, Kyle, I know Joey kind of teased several of them, but what has your eye looking at 2025? Obviously, we're saying goodbye for year 13 of NASCAR Coast to Coast, but before you know it will be February, and we will kick things off with, of course, Speed Weeks at New Smyrna and everything going on in Daytona. So leading into that, what has you excited the most? What are you looking for next year?
Yeah, well, Joey kind of teased it up with, there's kind of a renaissance here in short track racing, just so much of it, all of which seems to be fairly healthy. We saw the growth of the smart modifieds and the Cars Tour this year, a couple of divisions that aren't part of the NASCAR sanction, but divisions that we talk about here on the show, the Monaco Modified Tri-Track Series up here in New England. Great car counts, great growth, more races. And I think, the overall health of the sport, a lot of momentum heading to 2025, and I'll be interested to see how that transpires. And we usually get a pretty good feel of it at New Smyrna, just because there's so many different divisions, and it's all the divisions that we cover all year: the pro late models, the super late models, the tour type modifieds, the NASCAR wheel and modified tour. Good fields there usually is a pretty good indicator of what we're going to see for the next 9 months.
Two things I'm looking at for next year, Kyle. Obviously, Joey talked about it too, that kind of spotlight on short track racing on the national stage. Obviously, we talked about North Wilkesboro All-Star Weekend, having the Cup Series with the modifieds, with the NASCAR with the Modified Tour. But I'm looking at it across the board. I mean, when we go to Lime Rock, ARCA is going to be there. We go into a new facility. When we go to Rockingham, we're kind of bringing back another legendary NASCAR track. We're going to have the ARCA East schedule there, as well as the trucks and Xfinity cars. So that kind of bridging the gap a few more times than we typically have seen over the years is going to be really special. And then I'm curious to see what happens to some of our short tracks. And we talked about it. Hickory, the car count wasn't there this year. And obviously they've gone through some hills and valleys over the course of the last several years. But with the strength of the Cars Tour, what's going on the modified side of things? How does this affect the local short track scene in our NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series Championship? Obviously, Connor Hall could be a shoe-in for a third straight title if he goes out and dominates, or if he focuses primarily on the Cars Tour. So a lot of things to kind of keep in mind as we look forward to next year. Good stuff. All right, well, we say goodbye, but the racing is not done yet. There are two big ones, very big ones, coming up on the calendar, beginning with November 30th. It's the 8th annual Islip 300 at Riverhead. Actually, that's coming up this weekend, I should say. Riverhead this weekend for the modifieds. It is a non-points event, but Kyle, this race has been a part of the track for as long as I can remember. It's named for the now defunct Speedway on Long Island, Islip. What are your thoughts about Riverhead getting the modifieds out there? It seems like it'd be a little chilly time of the year, but it always produces great racing no matter what's there, whether it's the tour or this event.
And that's what I like about the modifieds and the modified crowd. I don't feel like the weather really affects whether people attend the events or not. We see that with the Turkey Derby every year down at Wall Stadium. We'll see it here this weekend with the Islip 300 at Riverhead. And a good field is expected. They've been adding to it a lot of local flair. A lot of their Saturday night competitors going to be a part of the event. So looking forward to it this Saturday.
That's right. And you can run any of the 4 different tour type specifications. So like the rule book has expanded. So we'll see some interesting combinations in that race this weekend. Coming up November 30th, it's the 9th annual UARA National Bill Bigley Senior Memorial 128 at Freedom Factory. Obviously, this one brings out a lot of the late model stars as well. 27 teams on the entry list. Ty Majeski announced he is one of those as a tune-up for the Snowball Derby. Also, Stephen Nasse and the tune-up winner a few weeks ago, Johnny Sauters, back in the field. He also finished 3rd in the Crown 300 as well. You name it, they're all going to be there, but another great race at Freedom Factory coming up here in a couple of weeks as we get set for the tune-up to this race, the 57th running of the Snowball Derby. And I know, Kyle, you and I talked about a couple weeks ago, entry list about to 50, I think, for the late model event. And Alan Turner Pro Late Models, I think, for the Snowflake, last check was about 45, 46. So I would expect those both to be in the 50s by the time we get to December. What do you think?
Yeah, the Snowflake usually can reach 60, 65 cars. The Snowball Derby well into the 50s, maybe even 60s. So plus all the other divisions that are going to be there, the modifieds and the street stocks and the mini stocks that are all part of that 4-day race weekend. And then we'll be thinking about indoor racing with the Tulsa Shootout and the Chili Bowl. I mean, it really, if you think about it, never really ends before we get back to New Smyrna and Bowman Gray at the end of January and into February.
That's right. It all goes fast. Again, Snowball Derby weekend, December 4th through the 8th at Five Flags. Going to be live coverage on Flow Racing this year as well. So Flow Racing taking over that coverage as well. Kyle, I have listed here Driver of the Week. Obviously, we're down to the nitty gritty here, but did anyone from our championship weekends or a Matt Hirschman maybe stick out to you this week?
Matt Hirschman, every other week, I feel like he's been my driver of the week. So we're going to go with Justin Allgaier. Somebody that cut his teeth on the short tracks of the Midwest, obviously ran for ARCA championships, has been running for an Xfinity championship for a decade and a half, and finally picked one up this past Saturday and did so in dramatic style after those early penalties that we talked about earlier. Came back, pick up a second place finish in the race and the championship.
All right, I like it. Good stuff. Good one to end on, too, as well. Well, Kyle, this does it for 2024, my friend. Stay warm, stay safe up there, and we look forward to reconnecting when the calendar turns to the new year. And I know you and I will talk for sure, but enjoy a little R&R there at Stafford Speedway before you guys get fired up for Spring Sizzler. Now, here's the question. How many days till the Sizzler? You should know this. I'm putting you on the spot.
It's a lot. It's like 170.
I'm disappointed. Somebody at Stafford Speedway should have a calendar, should have a countdown clock, days until the Sizzler, because we all know that's the granddaddy right there.
When we get within 100, the clock really begins. But you know, that 130 number is kind of depressing, especially when it gets dark at 4 o'clock now.
Yeah, it's that time of year for sure. Well, Kyle Rickey, we appreciate it as always, my friend. We'll catch up with you here soon. For our producer, Pat Jaggers, we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to NASCAR Coast to Coast over the year here in 2024. And it's all been brought to you by Whelen Engineering. Can't thank them enough. Of course, big announcements for them being a part of the tour next year for the Modifieds once more. And, of course, they've been a part of MRN Coast to Coast here for the last couple of years. We thank them for all their support. They've been manufactured in America for over 70 years. My name is Chris Wilner. That is doing it for Coast to Coast here in 2024. We'll reconvene next year as we start to ramp things back up with the New Smyrna Speedway Speed Weeks World Series of Asphalt. That'll be here before you know it. Have a good week, everybody, and Happy New Year. We'll see you next time in 2025.